Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience, where they felt stuck, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others and finding possibility for yourself. Let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Off the Comma. And where are we now in time? By the time this episode airs, we should be towards the latter part of summertime 2026. Pretty excited about that. Hope everybody's been having a good year. I am very fortunate to be here doing this work. I say that every week because it matters and it's important. And I love being able to bring these stories to a broader population and to the world so folks can be inspired by other people's experiences. This week is exciting for me because often I'm meeting people for the first time and hearing their stories for the first time. And this week I am interviewing somebody that I know, somebody that I've worked with and a colleague and somebody who's become a friend as well. And I will be hearing his story for the first time because even though we talked about the podcast, I was like, I don't want to know any details. I want to hear it fresh. I want it to be unbiased and spontaneous when I hear the story. So I'm very pleased to stop rambling and be able to turn it over to our guest, Jerry Jones. Jerry, I'm going to let you introduce yourself this week. Let's do what we do in every episode. Let's start with, how would you like to be known? How would you describe yourself as a person?
Yeah, and that's such a fabulous question, right? Because it makes you think, makes you process a little bit. What would I want on my tombstone? How do I want to be known? And re really, as I think about it, I really want to be known as a person who brings out the strengths in other people. I love
Mm,
watching people find themselves, find their best self, and kind of hone their skills and become better at what they do. I love kind of zooming out to the big picture and then looking down and saying, all right, let's process this. Let's get creative and see how we can make this come alive. So that's the
mhm.
that's the heart, and I've gotten to do that in a lot of different roles in different formats. But if I had to summarize it all, I think it would be that. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm already like resonating, when you talk about zooming out and looking at the big picture, and then go in from there. That definitely is something I can relate to. So maybe that'll influence our
Yeah, I've seen
conversation
that in
today,
you.
right?
I noticed that about you. Yeah,
I love getting caught up in the weeds, but I gotta fly over them first. I gotta see
right.
which part of the
Yeah,
weeds I want to
absolutely,
go into,
absolutely.
right? But enough about me. So, okay, so we're learning a little bit about you. I'm excited to see how these things show up in your story today. What else would be important for people to know about you, just kind of briefly by way of introduction, before we
Yeah,
actually go to the story?
sure. So, the big picture stuff. Been married just past my 30-year anniversary.
Nice.
Been married since college, and I have two kids. One daughter who actually just finished college last week, and
Congratulations.
one son who just finished his sophomore year in high school. We spent a lot of their lives and a lot of our lives actually in China. I worked in China for about 15 years as I had multiple roles. I did training, design, and facilitation, worked with people in their cross-cultural transition.
Hmm.
Worked for a while as my role was transition specialist, so really helping people who were not from China come and process this new life they were about to embark on, how to be respectful to the culture, how to engage across cultures, how to communicate well, all of that, and love that. Love really digging deep into the different ways that we see things, and then how do we work effectively together. Did that for multiple years. Came back in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. That was a big. We'll talk more about that.
Hmm.
But then also spent several years in kind of a cross-cultural DEI space. It was with a DEI company, but I was a part of the international branch of that. So we got to work with companies, multinational companies from around the world as they figured out how to empower their people even though they have different perspectives and different stories and experiences and backgrounds and ethnicities and languages and all of that,
Hmm.
really how to come together to move toward a common goal. And so loved that. Last year was hard on DEI for multiple reasons. And now I get to kind of freelance a little bit, bring pieces of all of that into training and facilitation and design and lots of different things. So that's
Nice.
the that's me in a nutshell.
So many cool things. And like as you were talking about your role as a transition specialist in China and so forth, I kept thinking this dude's actually an ambassador, maybe not in an official government type of sense,
Yeah,
but like truly, I mean, you were an ambassador first, from a cultural perspective, and secondly, from a, diversity and inclusion perspective,
yeah,
and all
yeah,
of the other things that come with DEI, right? And
yeah, yeah.
DEIB and so forth. So
Yeah, yeah,
nice.
and I love that. I've never thought of it that way, and I'm sure the real ambassadors would argue, but I'll take it. I like it. I do really like connecting people, and I love it when we just kind of discover why shouldn't we connect? Like what would stop us from connecting, and then let's work through that, right? Like let's figure
Yeah.
out how to make it work anyway.
No politics, bribes, or impropriety needed, right?
Right,
Okay,
exactly. Exactly. That's where it
cool.
all goes wrong. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, and I know enough about you that I know some of these things are going to show up probably in your story today too, or
Mhm. Yeah,
or
absolutely. Yeah.
may pop in from the corners or what have you. Jerry, before we get to the five questions and we actually get into your story, there's one question I ask every guest every time, and that is, as you think ahead to the next 30, 35 minutes or so of sharing your
Mm.
story with us today, what intention would you have for yourself?
Mm. Yeah. I want to communicate, I think, what I've learned out of the messes and the struggles and the beautiful spots as well. Because I think that's the joy of this journey for me has been that there's always something new to learn. There's always another lesson that's going to be shaping and actually shapes the next part of the journey, right? Like
Hmm.
it, and that's what I've been fortunate to do is to live a lot of different places, go see a lot of different things, and meet people from all over the world. And every one of those people has taught me something that has impacted the next part. And so I hope to be able to communicate that effectively and maybe somebody else will walk away with something as well.
Nice. Well, my intention today is to support you in your intention to
Love it.
create a space for you to be able to share your story with others, and that there's going to be people out there who are going to see a little bit of themselves in you, in your story, that's going to make them feel a little bit more connected, maybe a little less
Mhm.
alone, and in the best of cases, maybe even be inspired or feel empowered to go out and do something they've been secretly wanting to do.
That would be ideal.
Let's dive into it then.
All
So,
right, let's do it.
question one, Jerry, is where in your
Ready.
life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
So it was 2020, as I mentioned. I had spent, the better part of 15 years in China, really not only building a career, but building an identity. Like
Mm,
that's who I was. I got to travel back to the States every year for like a 2 week training with these people who were right on the edge of moving abroad. And they were scared and excited, and they were waiting on their visas to come through, and they were trying to make sure they had the money. Some of them were selling their house or their car. They were scared about their kids. They were taking their kids with them, their families. And they were about to move over into this new world. And I got to connect with them, right? Like I got to tell my stories, I got to laugh with them and really present a lot of different things that um like on one level may have stressed them out more because we talked about
mm,
what was real and what's going to be challenging and what's going to be hard, but at the same time bring their stress level down and just say, hey, this is doable and you're going to have tremendous impact as long as you're clear on what you're going for and what you want to do here. And so it was really, really rich. And then I would spend for 10 years, I would travel around China and even into the Middle East to these, most of them were schools, and sit with those same people. In that context, it was all schools. I
hmm.
worked with other people as well, but I would sit with these teachers and administrators and people who had just uh, come to live abroad. And about 3 months into their time there, I would say, hey, look, we talked back in July, but that feels like forever ago now, right? Like that's
Hmm.
so what's it really like? And we would just talk for an hour at a time or 2 hours. We'd go out to dinner, and these people that I met, I got to see their new lives in China, in the UAE. Um, and it was really rich. And then I would go again about 6 months in, and I would do the same thing, and just kind of coach them through their first year. And that became so much a part of who I was, right? Like it was, there were a couple thousand people over that 10 years, right? Like
Mm.
that was it was so beautiful, and it was so much a part of who I was, and it was what I wanted to extend beyond that, and actually launched a company at the end of that time in China to kind of broaden out and to expand and to offer those services to multiple places. As we came to the end of our time in China, um, we knew that we were leaving China. I didn't want to come back to the States yet. I
Hmm.
wasn't ready for that. And so we looked around, and we kind of had uh, our parameters of where we would go. We weren't excited about taking on language learning again, and jumping into a whole new at our age. My wife and I are like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that again. And we
Hmm.
found this spot on the map, Malta, which is just like, if you look at it, it's like a bullseye in the middle of Europe and North Africa and the Middle East, and it's close enough to Asia to stay connected. And I had connections all over those places, and really thought that like this would be great. I can fly to mainland Europe for about 30 euros at any time,
Wow.
right? Like
Hmm.
it was great. And so we moved there with this big ambition of expanding, and we tried to do that kind of in that space during COVID where none of us knew what it really was and how impacting it was going to be for all of us. And so it just didn't work, right? Like
Hmm.
we ended up realizing, one, the financial load, and I couldn't travel, I couldn't connect with these people that I wanted to connect with. And so it was really cut short, and we ended up only staying there for about 90 days. And in
Oh.
that time we moved. Like we had a car, we had an apartment, we had internet, phone service, all of that. And then it was a very hard realization to say, okay, this is not going to work. What do we do now? And it felt like our option at that time was to come back to the States. So
Hmm.
this one thing that I didn't want to do yet was kind of the only option. So coming out of there, we just kind of hid for a
Can I
little
jump
bit.
in for just a
Yeah,
moment?
please,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So I just want to kind of reflect back, and anytime I reflect, if I miss something or if it's incorrect, by all means, correct me. Like we're already kind of following and tracking. It's like, oh, hold on. Like I had to move once, and then within 90
Mhm.
days we've got to move again,
Yeah,
and all of that. But it's not just COVID, which everybody has their own experiences with
right,
COVID. So
right.
there's a certain
Yeah,
degree of being
right.
able to relate to the context here, right? But it's not just the move, it's the the move and the dream. Like you
Yeah,
were
yeah. That's
building,
that's
there
that's
was
the
a
word that was in
whole
my head. Yeah.
there was a whole future
Hmm.
that you had propped up, set up, prepared for 10 years, and a whole like walking into a movie theater and expecting this whole life's movie to unfold,
Right.
and you haven't even sat down, much less started on your popcorn, and somebody says get out.
Yeah. Get out. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, continue. But I just was like, it's not just the move, it's the dream,
No,
right?
it was everything, and it was the dream moving forward, but it was also like looking back, it was my identity, right? Like
Hmm.
I was the culture guy, I was the transition guy. I had purpose and people and community, and it was really rich. We were the expats who helped people be better expats, and so that was very much who I was, and that I think that's where the comma was, right? Like it was as soon as we landed back in the States, I didn't know, not only I didn't know what I was doing or what I was going to do. To some extent, I didn't know who I was apart from that, right? Like
Hmm.
if I don't have that, I don't know. Um, I don't know what to do with that. And so that was very much a time of to use your words, that was the comma, right? Like that was a moment of feeling stuck and confused and worried and all of that.
I think so many folks listening can really appreciate the gravity and the magnitude of
Mm,
that comma moment, but share with us something that we can't make assumptions about. Like, I mean, you've set the stage for us. Boom, you're back home in the United States. Well, you're
yeah.
back in the United States, is what you
Yep.
said, because that's
Yeah.
not necessarily home at this point,
It didn't
right?
it, it didn't feel like home at the moment, right? Like we
Yeah.
were still very much in transition. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else was that like for you? I mean,
Mm,
what kinds of things are you feeling and
hmm.
thinking beyond the obvious kind of subtitles, so to speak, or subheaders? Like, what are some of what's going on for you at this point? Because now all of a sudden that dream
Right.
has been yanked away. So
Yeah.
what's up with you?
Yeah. It felt very much like um still like there's still this part of me that wants to move forward. There's this part that wants to leverage everything that I've done and not completely let go of that. There's this other part of me that is confused about how to do that when I'm not in that space anymore.
Hmm.
Like I knew as soon as we moved out of China, uh, the time was ticking as far as the influence that I can have as, hey, this is how you do it. But I know because I did it years ago or this much
Right.
time ago versus I'm doing it right now and this is my life. There was that connection point with the people that I was serving and supporting that I could just speak from my own experience. That experience
Hmm.
still existed, but it's different when I
Yeah.
was out of it. And so I was very aware of that. So confused about what that looks like. Do I just go start putting in applications, sending out resumes, and trying to find a real job, a normal job? And I did that, and that was frustrating and disheartening. It's like
Hmm.
it's a very unique and kind of niche area that I've worked in my career so far. So where does that translate into real people work? So
Sure.
there was lots of rejection and all, which that comes with looking for a job anyway. Um,
I imagine if I could jump in for just a moment, like
yeah.
I know this is going to sound really strange and not meant to um uh like diminish the gravity of what you're sharing, but like I think about all the different kinds of tales and movies and stories and books out there, like right where the person has gone on the hero's journey and they've gone abroad and they've seen a bigger
Hmm.
world and they've been exposed to all these things. Even like in The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, right? When the hobbits end up coming
Right.
home,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
one hand, it's well, there's a distinction there. That was the end of their journey, right? So
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
prepared to come home and then kind of shocked by what coming home meant.
That was, yeah.
You
Yeah.
didn't get to complete your journey. So your journey got
Right.
interrupted, but coming home, it's like there's this whole sort of uh, longing and sort of like wanderlust lust for
Yeah.
the bigger
Yeah.
world that you used to have access to, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. And coming home in the middle of all of the politics and all of the COVID and the just it felt like everything was going uh, wild at the
Hmm.
moment, right? And
Mm.
so yeah, and to be clear and to be fair, this story is repeated over and over and over again, right? Like there were so many of our friends who were living abroad, and we just watched them. Like COVID disrupted the whole world, and you're right, everybody has a COVID story, and what
Hmm.
I noticed during that time is we all just kind of ran out of sympathy because it was hard on all of us, right? Like
Yeah.
any other time, any other moment in history, if you said, "Oh, I lost my job," or I had to stay inside for a whole week or 2 weeks," people would come out of the woodworks to offer you sympathy. But at
Hmm.
that time, it was like, "Yeah, me too," and here's my story and my story, and a lot of our friends, we had a whole group of friends that the companies around us would say, "Hey, it's getting hot here in China because this is where it all started. We're going to send you home for 2 weeks, and then you come back and things are going to blow over." Well,
Hmm.
that didn't
Not,
happen, and
yeah.
so some of them couldn't even get visas to get back in, and it was the end of their living abroad journey, right? Like
Yeah.
their story changed dramatically through no choice of their own. And so and that's just one area, right? Like it
Right.
impacted all industries and everybody around the world, but very much how it impacted the expat world. So yeah, that's where we were. We were it was a very weird time. And I had trained people on how to re-enter. That was part of what I did, right? Like we would
Right.
do departure seminars and really help people think through how to finish out their time in China really well and say goodbyes and we had great stuff about all of that. But this one was different. It was just there were so many unique dynamics to that point in history that that it just I was a transition specialist and so I knew what was happening to me, but that doesn't stop it from happening, right? Like it was just a
Yeah.
it was dark. It like for all of us, we were all depressed and not the best version of ourselves. We hid out for several months. We hid out before we ended up moving to California. We lived in Missouri for a while and
Hmm.
with my wife's parents, and that was just a really, really different and challenging time. And even though I could pinpoint why this is happening, I couldn't stop it from
Yeah.
happening. So it was hard.
Well, and I know a lot of people dealt with loss during that period, but your
Yeah.
loss in particular, and I'm self-referencing a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Because I
sure.
too am a traveler. I love, like,
Yeah,
I am not even getting to see as much of the world as I would like to, and the little tastes
right.
that I've had have only made me want more of it. And so, I'm putting myself into your story a bit by thinking, man, that's a big loss, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's
it
loss
was.
was
It
big
was.
to them, so not to
Yeah.
diminish that, but also to honor your story in that's a big loss to deal with. And you've got to return and you've got
Yeah.
to get back into daily life and you've got to figure out what next and
Yeah.
you've got to attend to your family and you've got to attend to yourself. And there's all this uncertainty and the world isn't normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It was
and
a
I
lot.
I
Yeah.
would imagine probably the thing you wanted most was to escape it all, which meant going back to the thing you had or something similar, right?
Yeah, and even that seemed unthinkable because the world was just in a mess,
Yeah.
and so I love that you bring up loss because I think it was loss, and all of us experience loss, and loss always comes with grief, right? Like
Hmm.
not all loss is the same size or same has the same impact, and so not all grief is the same. But I think that's one of the things that I really tried to learn through that time was that it's okay for me to acknowledge that a lot of things were lost here, and yes, other people have lost more, right? Like people lost
Hmm.
their lives during that time. Like COVID was devastating to a lot of people. People lost their jobs and lost in all different levels, and that's okay, right? Like
Hmm.
we can all still grieve, and our grief is absolutely relevant and it's a part of our experience, even though somebody else had it worse and somebody else didn't have it as bad.
Yeah. But what I appreciate about your story, and then I'm going to go to the second question, I'll
Yeah,
explain in a second. But what I appreciate about your story, Jerry, and quite a number of guests who have shared their stories on here, their stories have, if not centered around the pandemic, have been touched
yeah,
by or impacted by the pandemic. And what I love and appreciate is that we can acknowledge and absolutely empathize with folks who experience the loss through death and so forth.
yeah, yeah,
And we get to see so many different ways that this had an impact, right?
yeah,
This
yeah.
wasn't just everybody had to go inside and some people got sick and many people
Right.
got sick and some people lost their lives. Like it affected so
Yeah,
much,
it did.
right? And
It
I
did.
just learned through you, like that was a whole industry that I didn't even know exist, right?
Right.
The
And you
transition
wouldn't, right?
specialists, and that there
Because
would be transition
yeah,
specialists in multiple industries, right?
yeah,
So
sure. Yeah.
let me ask you the second question, and it's also an invitation, Jerry, for you to continue your story if you need to go
Hmm.
backwards, go forwards, wherever you want to take us. But despite the fact you've already kind of started explaining this, question two is as you look back on that comma that you sat on, what did it create for you?
Mm, yeah. Um, I and I actually really appreciate even the wording that you use there, right? Like the idea of create, because it did for a moment feel like everything was stripped down to nothing, right?
Mm.
So it um wasn't a matter of what did I fix or end up fixing or changing, or there really was a time of creation. It was new, right? Like
Hmm.
it's still built on what I'd done in the past and what I loved from my own experiences, but it really was about, instead of building, which is what I'd spent my career doing, it was time for creation. And so what it created was, one, an openness. Like for me,
Hmm.
there was an openness because all of a sudden I was open to anything. I was okay. Am I going to go get a job at Lowe's? Which that would be my preference if I'm doing some type of retail, or
Hmm.
I just want to be around the tools and the wood, and that's where I would go.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do that, right? Like I wanted to be with people. I wanted to be talking about culture and transition and doing what I love. But I was open to any of that.
Hmm.
It also really sparked my creativity, right? Like I was forced into this place of thinking through, what is it that I have to offer? What is it that I want to offer people? What is it that I want to do? And how do I monetize that, right? Like how
Hmm.
do I feed my family, and continue doing what I love? And really, it was that those moments of weighing it out. I used to do a thing called Wednesday walks, which was really just I was working with a coach and said, I want to do some video projects, but I hate video. I always hate being on video. And so he kind of coached me into the space of just getting over it and just doing it. And he
Hmm.
said, go home today. It's Wednesday. And you're going to post it on Facebook or whatever, but just take a walk. The time you walk from your office to home, which was about a 3-minute walk, video yourself. And so I got into that habit and I did it every week. And I remember one of my Wednesday walks, it was after we had moved back to the States, was just really kind of weighing out that thought of, do I want to go take a job or do I want to keep doing what I love? And I said, I'm open to the job, but I really want this, right? Like I
Hmm.
really want to keep doing what I'm doing. And so that's what I'm leaning into. And it was like a moment of decision. This is what I'm going to do. Shortly after that, I got offered a job, which allowed me actually to live in that space and do the things that in a little different context, a little
Hmm.
different industry, but really utilized some of the skills that I had built and experiences that I had had to help people continue to do the same thing, which is connect with each other and move toward a goal, even though there are differences. And so, it worked out, but there was a moment where I just really had to dig deep.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you there
Hmm.
because I mean, I know you're sort of abbreviating a little bit for us here, but that didn't just happen by accident. I mean, it sounds like
Yeah.
you said everything was stripped away. I was open because I kind of had to be, and also like when the attachments are taken away, then
Yeah.
you've got nothing to lose by being open, right? And you said
Right.
exploring kind of the survival job versus the job that still taps into my passion and my
Yeah.
enjoyment.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? What would you attribute to being able to land that kind of more ideal type of job?
It was the people that I knew and the relationships that I had built. It was a
Hmm.
friend who worked in the company, was actually this senior vice president inside the company who had built this international arm, um, and connected with another friend of mine that I had worked with and done some things with in the past. Had great respect for both of those. Uh, this one went to this one and said, "Hey, are you interested in this role?" And she said, "No, but take a look at Jerry." And through that network and through that connection,
Hmm.
she said, "Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that." And basically just offered me the job and brought me in.
That's
And
great.
it was fabulous. So it was very much those what had been built in the past. Because honestly, I looked at a lot of job openings. And it was very quick that I realized the DEI space was going to be hard for the middle-aged, straight white American male to step
Hmm.
into, right? Like that's, for one thing, that's not what the DEI industry really needs, or was looking for, right? Like
Hmm.
so that was, and I knew that, and I was
Right.
aware of that, but it just so happened that there was this,
Even though ironically, and I'm totally
yeah,
editorializing
yeah,
here, that is the
please.
audience for that work.
Oh, absolutely.
That is the
And
target customer, right?
it's the leaders, and so like there is, like it's valid. It's
Sure,
absolutely, like I
sure.
feel like my work was very relevant and good. And you're right, that is the audience, and that's where most senior leaders and the people who make decisions and yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And there just happened to be this one spot where it was like, actually, Jerry may be the diversity that we need in our team. We have a very international team. We've got
Hmm.
people from a lot of different countries and a lot of they didn't have a lot of men on the team, and they didn't have anybody with my specific demographic. So I was actually able to come in and add a different perspective, which was the work that we did, right? Like you're
Yeah.
better when you make decisions that come from multiple angles and different perspectives, and that actually makes you a better business. And so
Yeah.
that was rich, and that it just really worked out well. And the timing
Nice.
could not have been better. I actually started work the day after we closed on our house in California. So it was
Nice.
like new house. We're sitting on boxes, and I'm on my computer starting this new job. So it was great. Yeah.
That's amazing how it worked out. It's also amazing, really this sort of like the flow, the ebb and flow of the story and how you moved from the loss to kind of the new beginning, and we're still
Yeah.
able to maintain, the continuity in terms of,
Yeah.
sort of what fueled you in the
Yeah.
passion. Let me ask the third question, and absolutely you can bring in more parts of the story if you need to. It feels like a good transition point here based on where you landed. Question three is, what have you learned about yourself as a result of
Mm,
sitting on that comma?
hmm Um, one thing that I had already mentioned is that like it doesn't matter how much you know about the psychology, the like the education around the human side of things, right? That doesn't exempt you from being human,
Mm,
right? Like I did sessions, I designed sessions and taught sessions and worked with people and coached people and talked for years about what they were wrestling with in the middle of transition. And as much as I would have loved to just be able to say, oh yeah, like this makes total sense why I feel like this, it couldn't stop me from feeling like that, right?
mm.
And I kind of knew that before, but I learned it at a new level. I learned that I am not immune to bad behavior, right? Like to acting like to just crawling in a hole and ignoring the people that I love and ignoring the people around me, to being short and cut off emotionally from my
Hmm.
wife, from my kids, from my right. Like we were all in this it's great. It was grief, right? Like, and I don't know that we knew it in the moment or that we would have identified it as that, but all of us were grieving. My kids said goodbye to their friends, right? Like the people they grew up
Hmm.
with. Even though they loved coming to the States and being here, that was always a visit in the past. It was always kind of a moment, a couple weeks or a month at a time.
Well,
And
that had
now
to
they
be
were
culture shock for them too, because they
Oh,
weren't born here,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my daughter was born in China. She's adopted. And my son, also adopted, was born in the States. Ironically, my wife and I lived in the States when we adopted our daughter from China. And
Right.
then we lived in China when we adopted our son from the States. And so it's a very mixed up
But
back and
they spent
forth.
most of their growing up. You
Right.
said you were in
Yeah.
China for 15 years, right?
That was their normal, right? Like
Yeah,
they understood that world much more than they
for
understood this
sure.
one, and so that was hard, and it was hard because as a parent you want to like you want to give your kids everything that they need in that transition, but and it kind of goes back to I used to do talk about this in training. like it goes back to that sitting on an airplane and they say in the unlikely event that the cabin should lose pressure, an air mask will drop in front of you. Put your mask on first before you help
Hmm.
the people around you. It's not because you're more important than the people around you, right? It's because you can't help them if you're not breathing.
Right.
And I think I don't know how many times I had used that illustration, had shared that with people who were in transition, and yet I came back and I did not put my mask on, right? Like
Mm.
I was not taking care of myself. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was all of that. And so it was um like we wrestled through that and we acknowledge that and we've talked about it since and I think there's still pieces that sneak up on us every once in a while that come out of that time,
Hmm.
but I definitely learned that I'm not Superman. Not that I
Yeah.
would have described myself like that before, but I kind of thought I know this stuff, so I shouldn't have to deal with it.
It's a powerful thing you say, especially with that analogy about the oxygen masks. And you
Mhm.
said, I did not put my mask on. I'm not
Yeah.
Superman. Like,
Hmm.
let me throw the question back at you again. What do you learn about yourself
Hmm.
from that realization?
Yeah. Um, I learned that um, that my work is my work, right? Like the work that I need to do. It really is that concept of staying healthy. And there's a lot of I think we all learned about ourselves during that time.
Hmm.
That health is more than going to the gym and working out, and it's even more than eating healthy foods, right? Like those are kind of side effects of really staying healthy. Um, I realized how much I need people, and in fact, one of the great relationships I've had with a friend of mine, we just kind of connected, and we were telling stories, and it was like, let's catch up after years of not talking to each other. And as I sat there, I was like, wow, Chris, like I'm realizing how long it's been since I talked to someone, right?
Hmm.
Like we've all been locked away and we're stuck. And I moved out of my community that was kind of this pre-built, beautiful community in China. And I need people. I just do, right? And I think that works as an introvert extrovert. I'm an extrovert with high respect for introvert tendencies. Right? I'm
Yeah.
energized by people and groups and all of that, but I can also respect some quiet time. And I realized that had almost flipped. Like I had crawled into a hole, and so that's what I've tried to keep in front of me. One, um, is to notice when I'm getting off track, to notice the
Hmm.
signs, to really take my pulse, to recognize when I've slipped into unhealthy habits or I've pulled away from the people that are important to me when
Hmm.
I'm not doing work that I love, when I'm not connected to the things that really drive me. Um, all of that, and I've just kind of I think in that time I really developed an awareness not to start making all the right choices but to recognize when I'm veering away from it and to pull myself
Hmm.
back on track. There's a
What's
great illustration I heard years and years ago about how I don't even know if it's true, but it's a great illustration, right? Like it's like something like um most airplanes spend whatever the number is, 83% of their time off target, like actually not on the path that they're supposed to be on, but they all land at the right airport, right? Like
hmm.
they all somehow get to the right space. And how do they do that? Well, it's because they keep coming back to the right path, right? Like they veer off
Yeah.
and they bring it back. And whether that's autopilot or the pilot th themselves, it's like noticing when you're not headed to the destination anymore.
Yeah, well, and I love that because as somebody who spends a lot of time on airplanes, that is so rich, right? Because it's not just it's it's an indicator of how much we might, as humans, believe we have control. And an airplane is a great story, right? Because you set the course.
Oh,
You would say, we know so much about navigation and, like
hmm.
there's enough engineers and scientists and so forth that we should be able to like point the plane. from point A to point B and land, and that seems like it is what we do. But the reality is it's a relationship between the plane, the pilot, the
Mhm.
technology, and the planet, right?
All of it. Yeah.
Because you point the trajectory, and what I think many people know, but many people don't know, is that because of the rotation of the planet, like it is not a simple
Yeah.
calculation. It
It's not
is
like
exactly
driving.
what you just
Yeah.
described, right? Like it's constant adjustments and corrections, which was all part of the plan, right? and
Hmm.
and then of course there's the unplanned or the spontaneous or the just the natural nature of it all, right? But it is the relationship between that
Yeah.
plane and the environment and the constant adjustments and tweaking and
Yes.
course corrections and so forth. And that speaks to us, right? I was going to
Yeah.
ask you one specific drill down question because in every episode, like I acknowledged earlier, like we're hearing your story and people are self-referencing
Hmm.
and like, oh, I can relate to that. And we're nodding our heads, yep, yep, yep. And we're making, reasonable assumptions. You said, I have to notice when I'm getting off track. What's just
Hmm.
one really good cue for you that tells you when you're off track? Because I think this is where a lot of us will be like, I miss it. I don't discover it
Yeah.
until I'm already in the mess, right?
Yeah. I think for me, the what I notice is it's kind of like I have these two gauges inside of me, and they feel the same in one moment, but they're very, very different. One of them I would call excitement, and the other maybe just dopamine or
Mm-hmm.
so both of them generate some level of excitement, some level of good feeling. But what I notice in myself is that it's been a week since I've been excited about something, and if I'm working on something and producing something and moving towards something that's actually going to add value to my own life and to the lives around me, I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't stop. I just want to dig deeper. And I don't want to move away from it. In fact, when it's time to stop working, I don't want to. And as soon as I can get back to it, I get back to it, right? Like that's excitement. Dopamine is this, and there's definitely dopamine involved in that, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
from a biological standpoint, absolutely. But the dopamine gauge is I'm kind of medicating that with something that feels like that, makes me happy, whether I'm doom scrolling or watching movies or just doing something that kind of feels like maybe it's got some purpose to it, but and
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel the excitement. I satiate it um, with a momentary pleasure, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
something that feels good in the moment, and just kind of I start stacking those up on each other. But I realize there's zero value to this.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not helping anybody. I'm not. This is not healthy for me. And I've gotten much better at recognizing which is which, right?
yeah.
And being able to pull myself toward what's exciting for me, because it's a much higher joy, and at the same time it's much better for anybody involved, myself included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that to self-reference for a moment. It's like it may not be a really good example or it's kind of crass, but the difference between having a to-do list and being able to scratch check things off and feeling that
Yeah.
sense of
Yeah.
satisfaction versus the I'm just doing a bunch of shit and I go and write it on the list just so
Yeah.
I can check it
Just so
off.
I can
It
write it
wasn't
off.
there in the
Yeah. Yeah.
first place,
Right.
right?
So I could feel productive. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. I love it, Jerry. And I love that you share, this kind of complexity
Mm,
in between needing people and needing alone time. Like I can relate to that as well.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I love my alone time, I love my solitude and my quiet. But then, this is just one example of many where we get into these conversations and I light up and I get lit up. Could I do this all day? Absolutely not. But when I am
Right.
spending too much time and maybe like you said, start to get a little bit too indulgent with maybe it's TikTok or,
Yeah.
just let me take an extra nap or whatever the case may be if I'm lucky enough that day.
Right.
Versus I think I need to get out there and talk to somebody. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
who,
Yeah.
like whether it's, striking up a conversation with somebody in, a lunch place or,
Yeah.
oh, it's time for me to pick up the phone and call that friend or whatever. So,
Right.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question four for you, Jerry. What has
Hmm.
changed for you as a result
Hmm.
of sitting on that comma?
Yeah, very interesting because a lot of times I like it's not uncommon for there to be two commas in one sentence, right?
Hmm.
And so last year with kind of the cultural shift around DEI, we got swept away in that. Even though our work was very purposeful and very good and had nothing to do with the political narrative around it, except for we're helping people show respect and work with each other and work across lines of difference and in honor the history of the people around them. So there
Hmm.
was connection. It wasn't that narrative that got blasted. Um, but can you tell me the sentence again? I want to make sure I get the right wording
Yeah,
there.
yeah, 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 absolutely. And I want to acknowledge what you said too before I go back to it, which is,
Yeah.
something has changed for you and that the work that you did mattered
Mm,
and it was important despite the political narrative,
yeah.
like that there's always value to that work in
Yeah.
and of itself because as human beings we are diverse and because as
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
beings we must work together and echo chambers don't serve anyone. So I think
Right.
I felt like you were trying to kind of
Yep.
make a point there that there was
That's
value to your work
yes, that's
regardless of what
perfect.
it was called or regardless of how it was demonized by the government. But the question
Yeah.
was what changed for you as a result of sitting on
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comma.
So
You started by saying two commas.
right. So I found myself in a place again of
Hmm.
moving from full-time work to working as a consultant
Hmm.
and billing hourly and tracking down more connections and more contracts and really having to do everything differently. So that's what changed in between or that's what changed at this second comma. I lost my job, right? Like,
Hmm.
and was kind of forced into this place that felt very familiar, although not as chaotic and not as traumatic and as the COVID move two international moves within 3 months and then sitting in the woods in Missouri and trying to figure out how we do life, right? Like it
Hmm.
was a much bigger comma the first time. But what I learned and what changed in that time, one is that even between those two commas, which was about 4 years time, um, I, I, I took on a whole new skill set. I was exposed to a much more corporate experience inside of the United States. Got to work with great companies, great, like incredible, huge companies and mid-sized companies, and got to talk to their leadership. And just really, again, like I mentioned earlier, at every stage, I've picked up something from the people that I'm blessed to be able to connect with. And I picked up so much in that. I understood so much more um, shifting from a cultural perspective of one, and culture is very loaded, and we could talk about that on another podcast all day long, but helping people move from one country to another country or
Hmm.
uh, one experience to another experience, now helping people work within the same company with people who come from all of those different places and acknowledging, hey, um, this experience is not the same for me as it is for you because of the people around us and how they view us and all of that. Like there was
Hmm.
so much learning in, and I'm so thankful for that time because I think it has changed my perspective on who I am, right? Like the first comma, I felt like I lost my identity. The second comma, I felt like I've built an entirely new identity and
Hmm.
I love it even more. It includes who I was before the first comma, who I was in China, who I was all of that experience. It includes that, but it also includes this other experience that I've had in the DEI space. Um, but it really comes together to make a new me that has something new to offer and really can clearly see how to connect that to the world around me and what people need and how I can serve them really
Hmm.
to help them do their thing and to help
Hmm.
them work together.
Well, and it seems like kind of a thread that comes through, and you tell me if I'm wrong. It's like I said ambassador earlier. Now the
Hmm.
word that comes up for me is sort of like facilitator. It's like
Hmm.
y y your role as a transition specialist wasn't just in the context of that work or that company or that environment, right? You kind of always are a transition specialist, and it
Mm,
seems like you shifted from transitioning others to transitioning yourself.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Absolutely.
the teacher becomes the learner who then
Yeah.
becomes the teacher again. And it
Yeah.
seems like if that's true, it also highlights that, whether we want to call it facilitator or call it ambassador, it's not just the work of connecting people and being able to be kind of the most knowledgeable person in the room. It's also all the learning that has to be done in order to
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
become that person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think with my last company, one of the things we would talk about is cultural competence, and we started with the competence of humility, right?
Hmm.
Like cultural humility. And we really wrestled with it and how to define that, because what is humility? Humility feels like being nice. It feels like just letting other people go first and talk first and all of that. And sometimes it can feel like saying you're right and I'm wrong, right? Like,
Hmm.
yes, whatever. And that's not humility at all. And so how we defined it was cultural humility is suspending the defense of your own values long enough to learn about someone else's, right? It doesn't mean
Hmm.
you let go of your values. It doesn't mean you say, what's important to me. It's not fair for me to for this to be important to me, and if that's important to you, then we'll do it your way. And that's not it at all.
Yeah.
But it's me saying I don't have to argue with you right now, even if I disagree with you, right? Like even if I vehemently disagree with you, we will all be better served if I can listen long enough just to learn about where that comes from for you, about why it's important to you, instead of telling you why it shouldn't be. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful. I got to design that teaching, but it's a lesson that I've gotten to learn, and a lesson I don't always do that.
Hmm.
Sometimes I jump quickly to defend my own values,
Human nature, right?
but we do, right? Yeah,
Well, and what I take from that is like humility is decentering oneself for a moment or more,
yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah,
right?
that's well said.
Jerry,
Yeah,
question five. What does
yeah,
getting off the comma look like for you?
yeah. Well, here I am again on the second comma, and it's for me. I have. Let's see if I can remember them. I forgot to think about this, but I kind of broke my life into three sections when I lost that role. Um, and they all start with an S because I'm a designer. But it was
Hmm.
it was searching. No, it was scrambling, searching, and scheming. So when you lose your job, it's kind of the three choices you've got, right? So the scramble was I'm going to do whatever I can to put food on the table and make money for my family and survive this mess.
Hmm.
So I did that. I did a lot of scrambling, and it was actually really rich. It was good. The scramble, I learned things in the scramble. The searching was I'm going to look for new roles, and in doing that, I connected with multiple people. It's how you and I met. Is it came out of that searching,
Hmm.
and we were able to connect and kind of work together. And I've done that. I've connected with a lot of different groups and a lot of different people, and kind of have been freelancing as a facilitator and as a instructional designer, and it's work that I love, and I see it as getting to do it, right? And I'm so thankful that most of the work that has fed my family over this last year has come out of that search and really those connections. And then there's the scheming, which is I don't know, scheming has kind of a bad connotation in the States, but for the rest of the
Hmm.
world, it really just means planning, right? Like coming
Yeah.
up with
A
what's next.
scheme or a plot or a
Yeah,
plan, right?
right. I'm sitting back, and there's a little bit of, kind of sitting back. Ooh, what if we did this, and how could we do this? But I really have been um, processing how to share kind of some of the thoughts that I've developed over the years with the world. And one area I've always worked in with people in the middle. So in the
Hmm.
States, it was connecting with these people who are doing the work as they connect with their senior leaders and as they lead other people. I always called it like flying at 5,000 feet. And but then I would talk to senior leadership, and I was very thankful to work with a lot of senior leaders who were 30,000 feet and had to see the whole thing. But I was the ambassador, to use your word, between those people. So I love people who are in the middle managers, people who are leading teams, but also being led at the same time, and really feel that pressure of being the mouthpiece of the people above them, but being the advocate for the people below them and getting squished in the middle. And
Hmm.
so I'm in the process of just kind of launching a company that supports people and pulls together all of the things that I've learned through this career. It also pulls together other people who have learned things through their career and their wisdom, and we're really pulling that together to support people as they lead and are led at the same time, and really help them think through what would move the needle and how to really connect with the teams that they lead. So very
Hmm.
excited about that. It's all in a very early stage, but that's moving forward.
That's awesome. And it seems like, too, like, I mean, what a great way to kind of culminate and bring together all the experiences so far, right? The skill
Yeah.
sets, the exposure, the background and the experience, but also um, kind of what you've learned along the way, because so many of the
Mm-hmm.
people that you'll be supporting are probably in their own scrambling and scheming, or
Yeah.
scrambling and searching stage as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, absolutely. And I like it is not lost on me for a moment. Um, how rich that is that I get to do that, right?
mhm.
I've been at this place where it's like, how are we going to pay the mortgage next month? And have felt the struggle of that. And somehow through the experiences that I've been blessed with my entire life, right, through the networks and the people that I've connected with and the things that I've learned along the way have still been fortunate enough to do work that I absolutely love. And I know not
Mhm.
everybody gets to do that. Very few
Right.
people get to do that. And so I'm incredibly thankful and just blown away by how rich that is.
Nice. Very nice. Well, and those three words may end up being a part of your episode title too.
Excellent. Yeah,
No,
I love
I'm
it.
like, oh, I wonder. All right, Jerry. Well, obviously, we could talk more. You and I will talk more because we
We
know each
absolutely
other.
will.
And
Yeah.
but for other folks who maybe want to learn a little bit more or connect with you or see what's up or follow your journey, I'll be sure to put the links in the show notes. Where
Yeah.
can people connect with you?
Yeah, and LinkedIn is the best spot if you want to connect personally. I love to hear from you. Love to have more of this conversation if you want to talk about culture, transition, or management and leadership and any of it. I love that
Nice.
conversation. So love connecting with people. That's the best spot. And if you want to see some of the things that I've produced in the past, it's been a moment since I wrote, but I did for about 10 years. I wrote a blog called The Culture Blend, thecultureblend.com, which is just really explores a lot of my experiences in China, but also it was supportive of my work and how to help people transition well.
Yeah, nice. Well, and I think it will probably be important to acknowledge, and maybe this is just my own agenda item, is while much of what you write about is in China and like you said, the UAE, perhaps, um, as is the case with so many other things that people share on here, like for folks who go and check out your blog,
Hmm.
it you can also recognize that you could change the name of the country and some of the
Oh,
dynamics and
absolutely.
cultural
Yeah.
elements
Yeah.
and still like it's not just about China, it's about the experience of interacting with other cultures,
It is.
right?
Yeah.
And imagine yourself in whichever culture of your choice and
Yeah.
what that could
Yeah.
be like. It's phenomenal, right?
Hmm.
Okay, nice. Last thing, Jerry,
Hmm.
before we close out is, you being here, us lifting your voice up, hearing your story is a part of what this podcast is all about, and us being able to inspire each other as humans
Hmm.
without there having to be experts or, people who know more about things than others. And your story wouldn't be complete if we didn't give you the opportunity to lift up others. I call this
Hmm.
section acknowledgments, and it's your opportunity to boost or give a voice to or lift up others who matter to you. That could be causes, organizations, other creators, or just people in your life who are important to you. Who would you like
Yeah.
to acknowledge today? And I'll be sure to reference them in the show notes.
Yeah. Wait, I mean, is it too easy to just start with my family and just say, "Hey,
Happens
we've
all the
we've
time.
we've come through this together, and they have stuck with me through my worst moments, and I've stuck with them through their worst moments, and we have become who we are because of all of those challenges and coming through it and really coming out on the other side." So I couldn't even move forward without saying that. Um, there are a number of there are a number of companies and organizations, and actually, I don't want to call them out by name because I know that there are multiple important ones, and even writing them down, I keep realizing there are more. There have been
Right.
great. And I kind of want to flip it just a little bit. I know this is not the
Sure.
question, and I know it would be better just to give you some names, but I would like to just put out there that um, if you have ever been in a space where I was at the front and you were sitting there listening, or we sat across from each other and you unpacked your challenges or frustrations about culture transition or any of it. Like I want to thank you for putting me where I am because it is all of those people. Yeah, people have given me opportunities, and there are great people who have worked above me and given me space. But it's really the people that I've been charged with teaching or training or somehow imparting something to that have taught me the most and have really changed me more than anyone. So I know
Mm.
like a backhanded way to answer that
No, it's
question, and it's sneak around the back and
not at all.
but
Acknowledgments, that's the
it's
whole
true.
point here, is it's what is meaningful to
Yeah,
you. And people take this in different directions. Or I shouldn't even say different directions. People take it in all kinds of
yeah,
directions. And that's what I love about it, right? Is we don't
good.
try to control the narrative here. It's
Well,
all
that's
about
what I
what
love
matters
about
to you.
your podcast is you
So,
you give that space and that freedom, and you as a
yes.
person. I've noticed that we haven't known each other that long, but I've seen that in you already.
Thank you.
I just noticed I love that anytime I want, I can call up Paul Briley and just throw out a metaphor. We will come up with more we will come up with more illustrations and more wisdom out of that metaphor. And I those are the people that I connect with because I'll go all day on a metaphor and oh yeah, it's this too. And so I appreciate that about you. I think
It's
that's why
so
we
fun.
connected. Yeah,
I love that. I love that. And I'm just making shit up right now, but it's so funny. It's like playing cards. I'll see your bumblebees on a broomstick, and I will
that's
raise
right.
you a witches walking on water with
Yeah, that's
wisdom.
right. That's oh, even alliteration. It's so good. Yeah,
Nice. Jerry, I hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead. I hope you're staying cool down there in Southern
you as well, my friend.
California. And I look forward to our next, engagement and opportunity to
Yes,
talk. And
I do as well.
we will follow your journey as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. This has been great as I expected, but really
Awesome.
appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining our community of storytellers. What an honor it is for me to hear and share these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way. Think about what you learned from this conversation. I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling or reflection because surprises can reveal themselves to you when you write your thoughts down. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast here on this platform and all social media at Off the Comma. Feel free to interact and comment. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.